Hey, everybody. Welcome to my quasi-podcast. It's really more of an interview. I have some exceptional people in my life that I'm blessed to call friends first, and they're incredible in their field. They're not good. They're great. I'm not looking to make a referral for you. I'm looking to make an introduction so that you can get to know some of the people that are in my life. And man, today I have the absolute privilege and honor to talk to not only one of my really, really good friends, but he is probably, if not the best, one of the best personal injury attorneys in the state of California. And I'm really excited for you to meet him. So let me tell you a quick story. Oh man, Saar, I am so glad we're here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
To introduce you, Saar Swartzon's a dear friend of mine. He's the owner of a personal injury firm here in California. And I have watched firsthand what he does for a living. I've had a few friends who've had some really horrible car accidents. And, just to jump right into it before we talk about why on earth I'm wearing a Laker jersey today.
Which I love, by the way.
Yeah, but we'll get to that in a second. But I'll tell you one of the things I really like about you, because I know if Christy's listening, she's going to have, you're her husband. So she's going to be like, oh, he's not that great. But I'll tell you one of the things I love about you. The very first time I had a client who I referred to you wasn't a big case. And I think there's this misconception about personal injury attorneys, like you guys all want these big cases. And don't take this wrong. We all want to make money. But I'll tell you, if I can affirm something about you and your career, I was floored and blown away at how meticulous and detailed you were with my friend who was in a car accident. And it wasn't really a big case. So let's just talk about that for 30 seconds.
Sure.
You really do treat everyone the same, whether it's a $50,000 case or a $5 million case. And so where does that come from? Like, why is that passionate for you, regardless of the outcome of the compensation that they're going to get or you're going to get?
So really what it comes down to is I like helping people. And I know a lot of attorneys will say that, especially a lot of personal injury attorneys. But for me, the money isn't the driving force. It's the win. So it's like a winning mentality. It's also winning against insurance companies that don't pay out when they should. Because if they did, they probably wouldn't have to hire me. And so there are some cases that I do pro bono. And I just tell them, when you win, just call me and let me know. That's it. So I'll tell them, maybe go to small claims. I'll help you out. I'll do the brief for you. I'll do everything.
Yeah.
I want you to win. The only thing you have to promise, call me when you beat the insurance company.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that. So, I know you're a huge sports fan. We'll talk about the Laker jersey in a second. Do you carry the same mantra that I do? Like, I hate to lose more than I like to win?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm not, it will eat me and it will eat at me forever. I won't forget about it, right? You always remember the losses. The wins come and go.
Yeah.
But the losses are so much harder for a person, whether it's in business or personal life, than the wins.
Yeah. It's so true. And I know our mutual love for basketball.
Right.
I get a few reels on Facebook. I don't like everything. It's just watered down, but I like anything that's kind of some of the motivational speaking stuff. I love anything that's marriage that is funny about husbands, wives. But what I love mostly are the sports stories. And recently, I don't know, last 6 months, 9 months, everything is about Kobe, Michael Jordan, and Tom Brady. And there is only one recurring theme. If you see any of those, it's the same exact thing. Not one of them talks about the rings and the championships and the GOAT and any of that stuff. All three of their interviews focused on one thing, the losses.
The losses.
And how the wins just didn't, they were great, but the wins really didn't mean as much as the losses did. And I think sometimes, especially in personal lives, people don't look at losses in the way that it's going to make me stronger, it's going to build me up. And so you've got this sports mentality that you've kind of carried over into your business. Is that fair?
That's very fair. That's very fair.
And so just for the audience who's listening, I always say the 3.6 listeners, I'm not a Laker fan.
That's correct.
I'm a lifetime Philadelphia 76ers fan, no judgment. But Saar is a crazy, psychotic Lakers fan, and we talk Laker basketball all the time. And so I said, well, shoot, I got to wear a Lakers jersey for Saar just so I can show my guests that I represent. And so where did your love in basketball come? Why the Lakers? Like, what's the genesis around that?
So it's interesting. my dad is from another country. When he moved here, he moved to Syracuse to go to graduate school, and he loved playing basketball. He was from Israel, and he loved playing basketball in Israel.
Okay.
And then he goes to Syracuse, and Syracuse Orangemen basketball is
Jimmy
huge.
Boeheim,
right?
I mean, all of it.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Sure.
And so he was really into basketball. And so when I was a kid, I used to be a child actor, and we'd drive to LA all the time for auditions. And we would listen to the Laker games in the car. I'd hear Chick Hearn, who I met one time. It was a great opportunity.
Oh, I love that.
It was crazy. And we would listen to him nonstop. And I could visualize the whole game just by what Chick Hearn was saying. And so I became a huge Laker fan since I was a little kid.
Sure.
And then I remember going to my first Laker game, and I was in college, and I had
at the Forum.
Yeah, at the Forum,
Crappy
the worst seats.
Yeah.
And then I would figure out a way to sneak my way down as much as possible.
Of
And
course
if you
you
know
did.
me, I had a rule follower, so I was nervous I had anxiety the entire way.
Yeah, I love
down
that.
while sitting there. I couldn't even enjoy the game
Oh
because
my
I was
gosh,
so
I
worried
love
I'd get
that.
in trouble.
That's great.
But yeah, so ever since then, I've been a huge Laker fan.
Yeah.
I season ticket holder, and really just enjoy basketball. I played a lot when I was younger, and I played during law school. We played almost every day or every other day. So it was a good release, and it's just for me a good way to blow off steam.
Yeah, I love that. Saar's married to a beautiful wife, Christy. I know her well, and he's got 2 daughters. Sports for the daughters before we start talking about work. Do they love basketball like you? Do they play? Will they watch? Will they leave the room because they know dad's crazy if the Lakers miss a free throw or something?
Right. So my older one is not into sports.
Okay.
She was an actress and a writer. She went to OSHA, Orange County School of the Arts, and now she's in college. Doesn't play sports. Likes the yoga and working out and things like that.
Sure.
My younger one is a varsity lacrosse player at Mater Dei.
Okay,
so
got
she's
it.
been playing varsity since her freshman year, and so
Yeah.
she's into sports. She will go to Laker games with me.
Okay, there
she
you go.
will enjoy it, but they know come playoff time that I may be pacing a lot in front of the television.
Stay out of the room.
Stay out of the room.
Yeah.
That's right.
I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, and I think as a dad of boys, you're like, oh, they're going to be these athletes and these stars. The irony is neither of my boys love sports, and none of them root for the teams that I like. But my daughter, who played sports and all that stuff, a really long story short, she went to San Francisco State. I wanted her to go to Nebraska because I wanted to get a Cornhusker dad hat.
Right.
She ends up at San Francisco State, which ends up being a blessing because of my 3 kids, she loves baseball. Now, she doesn't root for the Pirates, but she
Right.
loves baseball. And so I would go up to San Francisco for 24 hours, and like her and I saw Kershaw and Baumgartner throw a no-hitter through 7.
Wow.
And so it's just ironic when I start this life of kids, I think my boys are going to be
That's
these
right.
staunch athletes. They want nothing to do with it, but I got a daughter that'll meet me at Chavez Ravine for a Dodger game and a beer any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
great.
So, yeah, I love that.
My younger one will go to Laker games with me all the time. That's one of the reasons I have the tickets is so we can go out there.
That time is...
it's great.
I love
it's
that.
great.
Okay. Let's talk about what you do for a living.
Okay.
Especially given today, it's March 5th, 2025. The last 3 years have caused some massive challenges in the insurance space for people who have auto insurance. So let's really dig into that for a few minutes because I know you are an expert at that. I know Saar from a networking group, and Saar's got this great tagline: if you get hit by a nice car, call Saar. And where he's done it well is he can walk into a room and 60 people will recite that when he says that. Everyone thinks they have insurance and everyone thinks they're covered. What's the main mistake anybody's doing with their car insurance in relation to potential liability and risk if there is an accident or an injury or something like that?
So I hear this every time I talk to somebody. I just got a few new clients yesterday.
Yeah.
And they always say, don't worry, I've got full coverage. Well, full coverage means different things to different people.
Sure.
Correct? So the main misconception and the biggest mistake I see, and I ask people to send me, even people that I don't represent, I say, send me your declaration page, which kind of shows what your coverages are for your
deductible,
your car
liability
insurance.
amounts, all those
Deductible,
things.
liability amounts, whether you have rental, etc., is not having enough uninsured, underinsured motorists.
Okay.
Especially if you're a good driver, because in the state of California, if the person who hits you doesn't have insurance, obviously the uninsured motorist covers you. above and beyond what insurance they may have. If they have zero, it's easy.
Sure.
If they have the minimal policy, which just changed to 30,000 in California, used to be 15.
Okay.
If they have 30,000, but you have 100,000.
Hold on real quick. Sorry. Someone has to have minimum liability coverage
Correct.
of 30 grand now. Even
Correct.
if they don't have insurance, minimum liability, if they hit you, it's got to be 30 grand.
Correct.
Okay.
The limits were raised from 15,000 per person, 30,000 per accident aggregate,
Got it.
to 30,000 per person, $60,000
Okay.
per accident aggregate. That just happened January 1st.
And if they only have that, and then you have uninsured motorists on yours, you gotta
Correct.
have more than that if you want.
Correct. So if you are in an accident with somebody who has the 30,000 minimum and you have 100,000 uninsured motorists, it also counts as underinsured motorist, meaning they don't have enough insurance. And if your injuries and damages and your medical bills are such that your case is worth about $100,000, then you can go and look towards your insurance company
Okay.
to help pay for those damages.
Okay.
People always underestimate
that.
the amount. Part of the reason is a lot of brokers do a disservice for their clients because when they when their clients use uninsured or underinsured motorists, it counts as a check mark against the broker and they get audited.
Interesting.
So it is negative. So I once had a broker tell me, I have an office in Tulare, California as well.
Yeah.
And one of my neighbors, she sells State Farm, and she said, I would never send you a client because if they use uninsured, underinsured motorists, it counts against me. And I looked at her, I said, but isn't that the whole point of your job is to protect people? Don't you want your clients to be protected? So that's the
Isn't
thing
that
that
like-
people, I just saw a policy that somebody we mutually know, I'm not going to mention names.
Yeah.
She asked for an increase. So yeah, the broker increased her underlying liability coverage to $250,000,
Yeah.
but kept her uninsured motorist at $30,000. I go, absolutely not. Try and have your liability coverage match your uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. That's an easy thing. If you can't afford a ton, that's okay. But especially if you're a safe driver, it's going to protect you,
Yeah.
right? I always say, do you put on your own seatbelt or do you have somebody else put your seatbelt on for you? I put on my own seatbelt.
Right.
That's why I
Every
look to
time.
my insurance company
To protect.
make sure I'm protected.
Okay. So I think I'm a smart guy. Clearly I'm not, because I've just learned something new.
Okay.
And same, like, I'm like, oh yeah, of course I'm protected. Two quick things on that. Uninsured motorist. So let me give you a hypothetical. I get hit by someone, they don't have any insurance, right?
Correct.
And you deal with that later. And I have, I don't know, 150,000 with my insurance carrier. And you help me get that money from them if they don't want to give it, right? Even though it's my own insurance
Correct.
company, they could still find ways, right? Because that's sometimes insurance companies do. But if I've got that coverage, potentially you're going to help me at least get what I'm owed based on what uninsured coverage I have on my own policy.
Correct. And then oftentimes they don't pay out, and we would then do a demand for arbitration against your own insurance company for not paying out what is deserved.
Yeah.
Just because it's your own insurance company doesn't mean that they fight any less.
I was just gonna
I can
say.
tell you that. I can tell
I'm
you that.
still sure that I'm sure even though I'm a paying customer for 32 years, they're still going to be like, oh yeah, we're not going to just give it to you easily. We're going to make you fight for it.
We have a mutual friend who had 2 underlying claims against his own insurance company, and I was in litigation against them for several years before they agreed to pay me what was right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes that to
Sometimes
do
it
that.
takes that.
Yeah.
Most cases, the misconception is that there's all these cases clogging up the courts, and less than 1% of all cases are actually tried in a courtroom.
Okay. I mean, like against the insurance company.
With
or
you
something like
against the third party or an arbitration against the insurance company. When it's
Sure.
against your own insurance company, you can't file a direct lawsuit except
Yeah.
for specific instances I don't want to get into. But
that. Sure.
if you get hit by a third party and you want to go after them and their insurance company doesn't pay you, you file a lawsuit. If you get hit, they don't have enough money, and you go after your own uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, you make a demand for arbitration and go through the arbitration process.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
And I know there's no guarantees, right? Other than, me wearing a Laker jersey today. Everyone has a misconception, and it may or may not be true. I file an uninsured claim, $100,000, whatever that looks like, doesn't really matter. And my insurance company is going to be pissed at me, right? Because I'm going to hire you to kick their ass and to get me what I deserve. In theory, are they raising the premiums later? Are they non-renewing? I know there's no guarantees to that, but can you give an opinion with your 30 plus years experience in that field? Like, what is that?
It's interesting that you asked that
Yeah.
because it's an issue that we deal with all the time.
Yeah.
Because the rule states that they're not supposed to be able
Of
to take
course.
an adverse action against you
Yeah.
for using your own policy. However,
Yeah.
I had a person who said, I was in 2 accidents that were my fault, and now I'm going to make an uninsured motorist claim. Are they going to drop me? And I said, well, they might drop you because you were in 2 accidents
other
that
2.
were your fault.
Yeah.
This isn't going to help, but
Yeah.
in reality, they're not supposed to.
Yeah, got it.
They're not supposed to raise your rates, and they're not supposed to drop you.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
as you know, the climate for insurance in California is difficult, both homeowners and car insurance.
Sure.
Very, very difficult these days. So I do ask people, are you comfortable making the claim against your uninsured motorist? In my experience, they have not taken an adverse action, drop
Okay.
them or raise the rates. They're not supposed to.
Yeah, got it. And that's interesting because I think there's that misconception. Like, I had a flood in a home I owned a long time ago, and it was a very expensive claim. And my insurance, my wife's biggest fear is they're going to raise their rates. I'm like, well, commensurate to the amount of money they're giving us, I don't care. I mean, I don't want them to, but I don't care. And they never raised our rates because of that. And so at least in that one instance, it was kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
Or whatever, they'll raise it $800, but the claim was almost $250,000. So I'm like, all right, if they raise it $800 a year, like I got X amount of time before I have to worry about it. So I do think that's something that just as an everyday consumer, we kind of think about. Let's jump into something really important.
Sure.
Let's talk about dogs
Okay.
in the state of California and homeowners, because we all think pit bulls are the only ones. They're not. By the way, I'm a pit bull lover. My son raises pit bulls. Like, they're these beautiful dogs. That doesn't mean that they don't have this reputation. But I think most people think, oh, it's just a dog, or it's not that big of a deal. But if I'm not making a mistake here, dogs and dog bites and insurance on that is a big deal, right?
Huge. In fact, if you look at what payouts are for most insurance companies, their payouts on dog bites are much more than their payouts are on homeowners.
No
claims.
kidding.
Yeah. From the homeowner's perspective, the dog bites are a huge liability for the insurance company.
Yeah.
Because the values of those cases are very, very significant.
Because someone's getting hurt.
Very hurt, could be lifelong debilitating injuries,
Yeah.
could be lifelong scarring. I can't tell you how many very, very serious and sad dog bite cases. I have one now that will be worth at least $2.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I know recently, I think I told you this, I sold my home of 23 years. I'm enjoying being a tenant right now. I don't have any repairs, but I do remember over the course of the last, 8 or 9 years, every time I'd get a renewal, I'd get a questionnaire. And just recently, 8 or 9 years ago, it started asking about dogs and pets and things like that. And so can they say no? Let's say it's not a service dog. Can they say no, or do they have to do it, but they can just jack up the claim because of the dog? Or like, well, what does that look like?
Yeah, there are many insurance companies that have exclusions for certain breeds.
Okay.
I've not seen an exclusion for all dogs.
Yeah.
But I have seen an exclusion for certain breeds. One of the breeds that will shock you, golden retrievers. Why? They're so nice. They jump up on people. They knock them down. Broken hips, broken back, broken elbows.
Who would have thought?
You would never think that.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's where they're looking at where the loss is for the insurance company, right?
Yeah.
So they're looking at, okay, what types of dogs are causing us losses? Yes, it's pit bulls and
Golden
Rottweilers and stuff.
Yeah.
But golden retrievers. But you never know what type of dog is going to cause the loss.
Yeah.
The main thing that you have to do is definitely fill out that questionnaire.
Yeah.
I tell everybody every year you should talk to your broker, an actual broker, and tell them any changes that have happened. New kids, new dogs. Because what I've seen before is people say, I've had the insurance for 20 years. They haven't talked to a broker in 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years ago, they had just gotten married. They didn't have kids. They didn't have dogs.
Yeah.
Now they have dogs and kids, and they go, well, this is
And none of it's
excluded.
been added to
That's
the policy
right.
because they just kept rolling it over without
Correct.
filling out the survey or something like that.
Correct. Or talking to their broker saying,
Yeah.
hey, is this included? Now, let's say you do have an excluded breed. There are certain insurance companies that just cover dogs.
Okay.
So that's a possibility as well. Just cover dogs. Make sure that your dog breed is covered. And then that way, in case you have liability, so you're not personally on the hook, you could have insurance that covers that.
Okay. I know this is so corny. I've known you for 8 years. I learn more stuff when I like sit down and talk to people, even though I know we're friends and we've socialized together. And it's like, so I want to talk about umbrella insurance in a minute. I want to go back to a couple quick personal things. And I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to say it. And all the time I've spent with you in a social setting, never knew you were a child actor. So
I don't really talk about it.
Well, we're going to talk about it right now. Give me a couple minutes. When did you do it? What did you do? What was it like?
So I think around fifth grade or something, I had gotten injured and I was out of sports. I was playing soccer and a few other things. And so my mom said, you're not sitting around all day.
Right.
So she said, why don't you go into the theater and try out for a show. And so I did, and we actually wrote the show ourselves, and I acted in it, and I was pretty good.
Okay.
So I started acting in all kinds of different stuff. And, and then my mom at one point, I think I told her, hey, I want to get an agent. She said, go ahead, figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And so in the old days before the internet, I used to have a book. And I got a hold of an old book that had
a rotary phone,
and it had like names and addresses of places you could send your picture. I sent them pictures from school. I kind of came up with my own resume. I wrote letters. I wrote to some interesting people. I wrote to Steven Spielberg.
How old are you when this is going on?
I think I was in 6th grade.
Okay, so you're 13.
Yeah,
and you're driven enough to want to achieve something, and you're going through the phone book. Your handwriting stuff, your rotary phone, right? You're dialing for dollars at 13 years old.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out how do I get in there.
And, I ended up getting a couple of auditions with agents.
Yeah,
and
I
had one agent, and then I did a few commercials. I did a TV pilot for CBS.
Yeah.
And then I got into SAG, and then I went to a SAG meeting with some, at the time, a pretty famous child agent. And I was the only child there asking questions.
Of course.
And so she came up to me afterwards. She goes, I want to sign you.
No way.
So I signed with her and did a few other things.
Yeah.
And did a lot of student films and some more commercials and a whole bunch of stuff. And then by the time I was, in high school, I really was, it's a lot of work. It's driving up to LA, driving back down. It's a lot of stuff. And I wanted to concentrate on my schoolwork. And so I kind of gave that up. I still did acting in school. I acted in almost every play in school and stuff like that. And, but I just wanted to focus on schoolwork.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Knowing you how I do on our personal relationship, if you would have said, oh, guess what age I started Yellow Page writing notes and calling people, I would have said probably, 7th or 8th grade.
Right.
But none of that surprises me because I've also seen how that carries over into your craft and how detailed you are and how aggressive you are to fight for the people. I want to talk about one other quick personal thing.
Sure.
And I just want to share a quick story. Saar and I share different faiths. He's Jewish and I'm a Christian. But I'll tell you, I don't like to boast, but if there's an area in my life I could say I've done well, is that I love everybody and I don't care what their religion and what their faith is as long as they're good people. And one of the reasons I knew I was going to like you, if you remember this, I had just met you. I was trying to raise some food for this nonprofit for some orphaned kids. I don't even know you. And all of a sudden, you're one of like 3 people who just shows up without even knowing me with a ton of fruit and blood oranges from your yard. And you bring your kid with you and you don't even know me. And one of the things I appreciate about our relationship, I sponsor the Orange County Rescue Mission. I do a cornhole event. They're a faith-based organization, yet you don't give a shit. You like helping people. You're my gold sponsor every year. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You're on the board at the wooden floor. You ask me to come and sit down for breakfast. I make a donation. Here's my 2 questions. Where does that servant heart come from? Because you're one of the most generous people I know with your time, and with your finances. Like, you are not afraid to give your money away. Number one, where does that come from? Number two, how do we get more people who, regardless of religion and faith and all this stuff, how do we get more people to come together just to help the common good, just to serve more people, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on or something like that? So where does the generosity and servant heart come from, and how do we do more of that with more people?
Yeah, I think, my parents growing up, they didn't have a lot of money. At certain times, my dad did, and then business went down. He started working out of the house and things like that. But my parents, whenever anyone came here to visit, she would put them up, give them food, take them shopping, buy them things.
I love that.
Yeah,
and she probably didn't have a lot of money
didn't have
to
a
do
lot
that.
of money to do that, and she did it every time.
Yeah.
When she would go and visit family and friends, the suitcases were filled with stuff for them, not stuff that she was bringing.
I love
so,
that. She modeled it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She probably didn't even have to tell you.
No.
You just watched what
we
she
knew.
did.
We knew.
Yeah.
I knew. There was a time where I was away on a trip, and I had brought either a Voltron or my Hot Wheels, which were my prized possessions.
Yeah.
And she said, if you give them to your cousin, I'll buy you all new Hot Wheels when we get home.
Okay.
So I did that.
That's a pretty good deal, by the way.
And let me tell you, till this day, my dad taking me to go get about 100 Hot Wheels when he got a raise is one of the greatest days of my life.
I love that. And I want to talk about cars in a minute.
Okay.
First of all, I love that she modeled it, because I know that you model that for the girls. I've been on the receiving end of your generosity of come to my house, 100 people, and I'll make you crepes.
Right.
Like, no, I mean it. And it's a big deal. And I know you were never one to stand up on a pulpit and say, look at all these great things that I do. And it's one of the things I love about you is that you are so free to give. I love knowing that your mom modeled it for you. Anytime my 3 kids were with my wife wasn't big on just handing people money, but my wife was a single mom and she was hungry a lot. When my wife had one of the kids and they were at Vaughn's, she would never hand the person $5 that was homeless, but she always bought them food. And sometimes that meant we had a little bit less food, but my kids got to see it. Your mom did a great job because she didn't have to say, Saar, go be nice. You watched her do that. And so now it's easy to understand like where that servant heart comes from. How do we get more people to come alongside, regardless of what the nonprofit is, regardless of what the cause is? What do you think it is that stops people that have so much to give that may not have the desire to go give?
I think the biggest problem is that people are in their own way, right? Because when you're living life, you're just rolling along. I always say it's like going down a river. Sometimes you're not stopping and thinking. You're not stopping and thinking, how can I help somebody else? I always say I only want people who want to help, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to force somebody to help because it's not going to be good for them. It's also not going to be good for the organization.
Yeah, true.
So the tough part is that people also are, I think, they feel maybe I don't have enough to give. And what they don't understand, it's not always money. It's time. It's effort. It could be a little bit of money.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I didn't have a lot, I gave a little bit. People were handwriting notes to you, thank you notes.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So see what you can do. Find something you're interested in. Find something that your kids are interested in. When my daughter was younger, she started this program called Reading for Angels. It was for her bat mitzvah project. And there was a woman whose daughter was killed in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
And it just so happened she loved reading. And so they were trying to get books for people who couldn't afford books. So my daughter, who's an avid reader, loves books, really started the project in Orange County, did it at her school. And at one point, I think we donated approximately 8,000 books.
Wow.
Yeah. It was amazing.
How old was she when this happened?
It was from the time that she was 13 to the time she was 18.
Oh
We had a whole garage filled with books. And then we went to different organizations. And then there's a program that for people who are adopting kids, there's a day where the parents get a break and they bring their kids there. And there's all these different things for them to do, whether it's coloring or
Yeah.
playing basketball or whatever. And then one of the things that she would do is set up a tent with all the books.
With the
and
books.
she got to know these kids, right? She got
Yeah.
to figure out, oh, I remember you like Harry Potter
Oh
type
my
books.
gosh.
So she'd keep
So
them in the
intentional.
side and she would get to know she would ask him, what kind of books do you like?
Yeah.
This is a good book for you.
Modeled by you and Christy, right? Because your
Yeah, I
girls
mean,
have just watched-
she far surpassed anything I had done.
Well,
I
that's
was shocked with the 8,000 books.
Listen, that's a typical dad, right?
Yeah.
Who wants this? We want to give our kids the credit.
Yeah.
Which I love that about you. But your girls don't just inherently start doing that if they're not watching mom and dad do that. But it sounds like she took it by storm.
She certainly did.
Yeah.
She certainly did.
My wife used to take my daughter to the national charity leagues and stuff like that. And, you never know what your kids are going to be. Now that my kids are adults, I really can see like who they are and what they do. And my daughter had a project when she was 18 in college where they had to make some sort of art project or something and do something with it and hand it in. And my daughter, who's in the fashion business, finds these materials with these old scarves. And my daughter, when she was younger, had been to Malawi, South Africa twice, Haiti 4 times,
Wow.
and just loves serving. Long story short, her project was taking these scarves to downtown San Francisco, and they made a video of it and gave them to the homeless people.
Oh, that's amazing.
And of course, I was proud that my kid did the project, right? What I was more proud was, my wife never said, go be nice to a homeless person. My wife never said, go serve that child that's homeless. Because we did it, the kids just kind of picked that stuff up. And I think that's something that a lot of parents model really great. And I think it's one of the ways we can help. I don't want to get nostalgic. I think it's one of the ways we can change the world. When parents model kindness, love, and generosity, regardless of political differences, religious differences, none of it really matters, right? We're all here on earth to love and be kind to each other. I feel like when parents model it more, and I love that you get to celebrate that, like with your daughter.
For sure.
Where did the passion, you just brought something up, so I want to segue on it, and then I want to do one more business thing. I know how psychotic you are about your passion and love for cars.
Yes.
Old cars, new cars, expensive cars, inexpensive cars, rebuild cars. You brought up the Hot Wheel thing.
Right.
Is that kind of where it started? And let's talk for a couple minutes about where this just passionate drive of cars comes from.
Yeah, I loved cars since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I had Hot Wheels. I had a car bed I slept in.
Yeah.
I jokingly say until I was 18, but I had this car bed.
Yeah.
I used to look at magazines and tear out pictures. I had posters all over my room.
It's just
My mom
who you
used
are.
to say, if you continue to talk about cars, I'm gonna have to leave the room, because
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to talk about was
Yeah.
cars.
Even
cars.
when you were younger.
When I was younger.
Yeah.
And then I bought a car, rebuilt the car, learned about how to rebuild cars by buying the manual and literally going through a car
Wow.
step by step trying to rebuild it.
So it's
things
not
like
just
that.
what the car looks like. It's not just what it stands for. You want to know the combustion. You want to know the engine. You want to know
Correct.
the cylinders and all that stuff.
And also, because my parents didn't have money, I bought my first car.
Okay.
I bought my second car. I've bought every car I've ever
Yeah.
owned. And, you take pride in it when you buy it
For
yourself.
sure.
You wash it. I would fix it up. I do all the things. And I wanted to learn about how to work on cars. Today, the cars are much more difficult to work on.
Yeah. You'd have to quit your job as an owner of a law firm and
that's
just
right.
do that.
I did have a 68 Camaro for a while, and I was
Yeah.
able to do a lot of the stuff on that. But
Yeah.
today, with the new modern cars,
Too
I can't
hard.
work on those. Yeah.
Okay, 2 questions about cars. You win the lottery tomorrow. I already know you'll give away a ton of the money,
Right.
so I love that about you. You win the
Bugatti
lottery.
Chiron is the answer.
Bugatti Chiron.
Yeah.
What's that car cost? $1 million?
No, it's well over $1 million.
Over $1 million.
Yeah. I've got to win a bigger lottery.
I saw a car show one time because my 25-year-old son, the same. We were watching this car show, and I know what a Bugatti is, but I never knew what a
Right.
Bugatti was. And they were talking about this guy needed 2 new tires, and this is like, I don't know, 12 years ago or
I know
something.
how much they cost.
At the time, it was like $2,800 a tire.
Oh, no. It's much more than that.
More than that now.
I think it's like $20,000
For a tire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
And what's it called? A Bugatti what?
Chiron.
Chiron. And that's
Yeah.
I win the lottery, that's the car I'm buying.
That's what I'm getting.
Okay, how about this? If you had to go buy one car that was the biggest piece of junk sometime in the 60s or 70s, and you got unlimited budget to restore it, what would that car be?
67 Corvette, 427 Nassau blue on blue.
Boy, not a lot of waiting in that
No,
answer.
I know exactly. I had bought a blue Camaro because I had the young kids, and so I was able to put them in the back seat. That's why I bought the Camaro.
Yeah.
But my dream car was a Nassau blue on blue 427 Corvette.
Tell me, like, what's your financial vice? Is it the cars? Is it the Lakers season tickets? Is it, I know you love good whiskey and a good cigar.
Right.
If you had to say, like, oh, my one financial vice that terrorizes my marriage, that my wife just looks at me all the time and shakes her head, is what?
Yeah, it's cars. I do like watches and cigars and all these things. I'm a member of this group called Fast Lane Drive, and these guys have amazing cars. It's a great group of people.
Yeah.
They also are very charitable as well.
Okay.
And so I get to see all these crazy cars, and that's all I really want to do.
Yeah.
The thing I always say is, why can't I just like matchbooks, something cheap that's an easy hobby to have?
Yeah.
I have unfortunately expensive hobbies, but at the same time, I really enjoy it. When I drive, I get to forget about things for a little bit. It kind of gives you, it's like working out, right?
Yeah.
You get to, your brain gets to take a break.
Yeah.
And it actually recharges you.
And your car does that for you.
Yeah, 100%.
You just kind of decompress it. If you got a 45-minute drive somewhere,
correct.
You being in that car, you're relaxed. You probably come down a little bit, and it just gives you, and that's what it does for you.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll do it early in the morning because I want to be able to, just get out there, recharge, and then kind of move forward.
Yeah. Just because I know Christy a little bit, it's funny because I've got some of my own vices. I spend a lot of money on tennis shoes. I like concert tickets. I like to travel for sporting events. I think one of the reasons my wife doesn't divorce me is because those vices are, I may have too many pairs of tennis shoes, but they're only $120 each. I could imagine a look on Christy's face when you get maybe the vintage bottle of whiskey or a new watch. I don't want to say she's like, okay. But the problem with a vice of cars is it's not a $2,000 vice. It's an extrememely expensive one. And she's probably just like, Saar, what are you doing?
But I do talk to her before I make those purchases.
Right?
For her, it's travel. So I always do travel for her because I know that's
her love language from a financial.
She loves it.
Yeah.
That's what she would do all the time. So trips are really important for her because we get to spend time with the family.
Of course.
So I make sure that we prioritize that.
Smart.
And then
it's genius, right?
And then I talk about the cars during the trips. That kind of helps out.
I already know you're smart. You're not just smart at work, being an incredible personal injury attorney, but you're also smart in your marriage because you know how to navigate the pitfalls. And I hate to say it, you know how to kind of try and get what you want. It doesn't always mean, hey, honey, I'm doing this. Sometimes it means like, oh my gosh, let's go to Maui for 10 days. I can't wait just to love you and have a taco and a cocktail by the pool. And oh, by the way, there's a new car coming when we get back. Yeah,
that's right.
I love that. I want to spend another couple minutes on one more work thing. Everyone, including me, is always confused about umbrella insurance, right? But it is an extra layer of protection. What's one of the biggest mistakes people make with umbrella in the sense of, especially for auto, I would imagine, but
yeah, for everything, actually. It's interesting that you brought this up because it relates back to uninsured, underinsured motorists. So all umbrella policies are not the same. Okay. They're not treated the same. Some umbrella policies include coverage for uninsured, underinsured motorists. Some umbrella policies do not.
Okay.
Some umbrella policies are what we call true umbrella policies, that it follows me around like an umbrella. If I'm at your house and I slip and fall, and let's say I'm out of commission for 2 years, I cracked my head open or whatever, and maybe you don't have enough insurance.
Yeah.
Well, once I've satisfied your insurance, if I have a true umbrella policy, I can then try and go to my umbrella policy to help
for an
pay
extra
for
layer
me.
of it.
Correct. Or if somebody, my daughter or I drive and God forbid there's a fatality and my underlying policy is not enough to pay for that, the umbrella policy will come into play.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you look through the umbrella policy to see what it covers and what it doesn't cover. Correct.
I'm glad I asked that. And now I'm going to ask you one more. That's not true. I'm going to ask you two more questions. Okay. What happens if I have an underlying policy of $500,000, let's say, and I get in a car accident and I actually accidentally kill someone, right? and they want to sue me for $3 million. Let's say my insurance is going to cover me for what my insurance is going to cover me for, right?
Right.
If they sue me and I lose, the rest falls on me. Is that
correct?
Right?
Correct.
Fair statement? Okay. So people, being in the mortgage business, people say all the time, I have a homeowner's exemption on my home, or my home is in a living trust.
Right.
Talk about that for a second, because anyone who's listening to this is either going to have that misconception or they're going to think they know it.
Right. The homeowner's exemption is something that helps you because obviously you're exempted for a portion depending on your age and your marital status and things like that. So that will help protect you to a certain extent.
Yeah.
The living trust does nothing.
Does not. Because I am the living trust.
It depends. If it's a revocable trust, it does nothing. If it's an irrevocable trust and there's a different trustee, it may be impenetrable.
And the majority of us have a revocable living trust where I am the my wife and I are beneficiaries and trustees, right? It's only there in case I die and if I stuff like that. So revocable living trust for a normal human being does nothing
I
for
do
protection
it
to a certain
also
degree.
just so it's in the trust. It's more for estate planning purposes. It's not for a liability
not for protection.
Purpose. Yeah.
Okay, last business question. I want to have a party at my house. I want to have 50 friends. We're going to serve some really great food, and there's going to be some alcohol. Do you have the people sign the waiver, and does it matter? I know it sounds so trivial because we all want to say no one's going to sue me. They're my friends.
Right.
But
I don't have people sign the waiver. I wish that we could do just retinal waivers as they walk into the door. That doesn't happen. But you know what? That's why I have good insurance.
Yeah.
If something happens
and
they're my friend,
I
kind of want to make sure that they're taken care of anyways.
Yeah.
Whether or not they decide to sue me, that's up to them. Yeah, I might be disappointed, but that's why I have good insurance.
Yeah.
To protect them.
I love that you say that because, I have so many friends that are attorneys and so many clients that are attorneys. And you know this. I said this. I wanted to be an attorney. I just didn't want to go to school anymore.
Right.
I wish I was an attorney. But one of the things I love about what you just said is I think so many people fear that the attorney is going to say, well, of course you need to have a waiver for protection and here's what you should do. But I love that you're saying, like, listen, you can do it, but that's what I have insurance for.
Right.
And if one of my friends does slip and fall at my home, I would want them to have money to pay for them. Whereas most people are going to be like, oh, don't make an insurance claim on me, right?
Right.
So I love that you're not coming at it saying, yes, I want to cover my ass, but I'm going to cover my ass with insurance. I'm not going to cover it with a liability
That's
waiver.
the whole purpose of insurance is to protect others or yourself as a result of an accident, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That's the whole purpose of insurance. That's why I have very high policy,
great
insurance. It costs me a lot of money a year, but at the same time, I want to protect me, my family, and others as a result of potential accidents.
I love that. Two last personal things, and then we'll wrap up. As we sit here today on March 5th, 2025,
Your birthday.
My birthday, thank you.
Yes.
Lakers just picked up Luka 2 weeks ago, made a big trade.
Yes.
The Warriors picking up Jimmy Butler. You're talking about two teams that veterans, we're going to be okay, may make the playoffs, may not. Now you're potentially looking at top 3 or 4 teams in the West. What's going to happen with the Lakers and the Warriors and the Western Conference this year in the NBA? Because they're both on hot streaks. I think you said 11-2 the Lakers are since Luka came.
I believe it's 11-2, and they're in second place in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Which people didn't know if they'd even make 8th place.
Well, of course, because they just couldn't do.
Well, not just that. You had the same team chemistry kind of, and I loved Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Because I love defense, right?
He's a great teammate and a great player.
Great player, great person. He was my dream player when he went to the Olympics. And I said, the Lakers will never get him.
Yeah.
Then when Luka Doncic came into the league, I go, I love European players for basketball because they understand just the basics of basketball.
Yeah.
They can play all the basics of basketball, which I think people forget about. They want to slam dunk and this.
Yeah.
But I was worried when we lost them that the defense would suffer.
Yeah.
And their defense has been lights out. I don't know what has happened.
Well, I think other people are stepping up, right?
Oh,
because
everybody.
they realize they just lost their best defender.
Yeah.
And I feel like at that level, you want to hope everyone elevates their game.
Yeah. I mean, Jared Vanderbilt, without him, they hadn't played well. He was injured, came back. they've been killing it since he's been back.
So you have a little bit of a renewed energy, right?
Oh, completely.
I love that.
It's unbelievable. And Luka Doncic is younger than Austin Reeves, who I love.
Was he 25 or something?
He's 25. Austin Reeves is actually older than him. And to know that they can, I think that their future is limitless, even if they lose a LeBron James.
Yeah.
LeBron James, I think, is playing one of the best years of his career. It's
at
shocking.
40 years old.
It's shocking to me.
He's just a machine.
It's shocking.
I don't necessarily love a lot of his views.
Yeah, I'm with you. I
but that's okay, because he may not like mine.
Right.
But you have to look at that person and you have to say, he has done something that's almost never been done at his age, the conditioning he goes through.
50,000 points.
The fight that he has,
crazy.
like he will still bang bodies with anybody. So it's going to be fun to do that. Last personal.
Well, I was going to tell you Golden State real quick.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to hate Golden State.
Yeah.
But most of the players that they have are so nice.
I know.
Like Steph Curry. How can you hate Steph Curry? So it's not like the Boston Celtics, who I can hate no
easy
matter
to hate.
what.
Or the Pistons or
the
something.
Pistons, when they had the bad boys.
Right.
You've got Steph Curry.
Yeah.
He's so nice.
I know.
You know? And then when they had Klay Thompson, I loved Klay Thompson.
It's hard not to root for him.
Right.
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr is a wonderful coach. So I'm curious to see what happens with Butler.
I think that was a big surprise for them. I believe they thought they were going to get better. I don't even know if when they did that deal with Dunleavy making the trade that he thought they were going to be that good.
Right.
But I think it's changed the entire makeup of what playoffs will look like this year. This is kind of a last thing, personal and business. When you went to law school, did you want to become a personal injury attorney, or did you think I'm going to do something else, or I'm not sure what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I did not want to be a personal injury attorney. I studied political science, but I also studied cinema television at USC.
Okay.
And so I was going to go become an agent or go into film finance. And actually, I just found out USC has those programs, film finance specific, through the business school, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And so what was interesting is my friend from college, he was in law school, and I went to visit him after he became an entertainment attorney. And I sat down with him, I talked to him, and I went to his office, and I go, this is not what I want to do in the slightest.
You knew right away.
I go, I can't be in an office all day. It just would drive me berserk. You should see me on the phone. I'm pacing nonstop. That's why I have a treadmill desk at my office.
Yeah.
I can't sit down.
You have to be activated all the time.
I have to be activated.
I love that.
So I had done other things. I practiced in Chicago for a couple of years doing real estate. I came back here and represented trustees in bankruptcy. But I had a lot of amazing mentors along the way, and it's really important to have good mentors. And one of them told me, this isn't your passion. Go find your passion, which I did. And I interviewed at a firm, and we used to do asbestos mesothelioma cases. They were one of the biggest firms in the country.
I remember you've talked about that.
Yeah, and the second I finished that interview, I said, I'm getting this job, no matter what.
Yeah.
200 people had interviewed. And this was before email was really big. And I was emailing, I was calling, anything else you need? What else can I do? I flew out to Dallas to interview with the partners. And it was awesome because it was me representing somebody who was dying of a preventable disease against 15, 20 defendants.
Yeah.
And I was in charge of the deposition, and I loved when they were trying to attack my guy, I would be there right in their face. I made sure I controlled the room. And I've made a lot of good friends, even defense lawyers who I'm still friends with, who refer me cases because they liked me and I was good about it. And it was great. So I didn't think about becoming a personal injury attorney. I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
And then when I joined with my law partner, Jason, and I also have a law partner, Oz Tannenbaum as well, who you know very well.
Yeah.
Jason and I were fraternity brothers at USC, and that's how we kind of joined forces, and it's been great ever since.
Oh my gosh. I love that story.
Yeah.
I also know how passionate you are about cars, right? So the personal injury,
that's right,
synergies, it's right there.
And when your name is Saar and your motto is, if you get hit by a nice car,
call Saar. Yeah,
it kind of works.
Yeah,
which is trademarked, by the way.
It is.
Yes,
well,
it is.
as it should be.
As it should be.
We've all seen the signs on the side of the freeway, on a bus sign. You see way too many TV advertisements about that. I can only tell you, if you have a personal injury matter, you've heard Saar talk about how passionate he is. He's a partner and owner of Saar Swartzon. They're a personal injury law firm. They really specialize in personal injury cars, dog bites, bicycle accidents, anything related. I've watched his work firsthand with some friends of mine, and he's an absolute expert in his field. And you heard him, like, you don't have to call him with a case. Like, send him your insurance policy. Let him be a second set of eyes for you. And so, Saar, looking at that camera right there, tell our 3.9 listeners now, if anybody wants to reach out to you or connect with you, tell them how to do that.
Yeah, just go ahead and email me, Saar, SAAR, at legalhelp123, or call my office, 714-547-5100. You can text that number. If you have a question about insurance, half of my job these days is looking over insurance policies, giving people my feedback on what I think they should have. Obviously, talk to your broker, but I'm happy to take a look at it. I'm happy to talk to anyone and try and help them out.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the hot seat. I'm glad we got to do it. Since Joel Embiid is out for the year and the Sixers didn't have a lot of hope anyway, I have another interview who's a real estate agent, good friend of mine, another psychotic Lakers fan, and my brother's a Lakers fan. So I've made a cognizant decision that I may as well root for the Lakers so I can at least support my friends. So it'll be fun watching that. Thanks for taking the hot seat. I had a great time today.
Absolutely. I had a great time.
Yeah. Thanks, Saar.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.